Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Alejandro Mayorkas, shows like The View, Democrats are responsible for Laken Riley's death. They'll sit there, tell you that the border is secure, that you have nothing to worry about, it's all in your mind, you're a racist for believing other words, that you hate immigrants, etc., etc. Tell that to Laken Riley's family. Joe Biden, he just laughs it off. Kamala Harris cackles, laughs it off. I've been to the border. She went to the border a month ago because she was running for president. Never once did her job. They are all responsible for this young girl's death. And this piece of garbage, if he wasn't in the country, this never happens. It doesn't happen. So you can try to shape it up any way you want. He wasn't supposed to be in the country. If he wasn't here, it doesn't happen.
Malice murder, I find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder, I find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder, I find the defendant guilty. Count 4, felony murder, I find the defendant guilty. Count 5, kidnapping with bodily injury, I find the defendant guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault with intent to rape, I find the defendant guilty. Count 7, aggravated battery, I find the defendant guilty. Count 8, obstructing or hindering a 911 call, I find the defendant guilty. Count 9, tampering with evidence, I find the defendant guilty. Count 10, peeping Tom, I find the defendant guilty. I certainly will allow both sides to look at this if you want to do it.
Not a care in the world. Could care less. Piece of garbage.
The next step is sentencing. I'm prepared to go forward with that now, or if either side suggests that you need a few minutes, an hour break or something to do that, then I'll certainly do that as well.
Do you know what the number one crime around the world is? Europe, Canada, all these places that allowed mass illegal immigration. The number one crime that skyrocketed from allowing illegal immigration, sexual assault.
I understand. We will recess till 12:30.
And the craziest part of what I just said is you'll have all these liberal women, women's rights, women this, women, but they'll vote for the party, meaning Democrats, who won't secure the border to keep them safe. That's why I say liberalism is a mental disorder.
Recess till 12:30. Will that work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And there you heard it. 10 counts. Guilty from felony murder to peeping Tom. Jose Ibarra, who took the life, guilty. Convicted of killing Laken Riley. Guilty on kidnapping. Guilty. An illegal alien in this country should never have been here.
That's right.
Crossed our border, broke our first law of sovereignty, and eventually reached this victim, Laken Riley, a Georgia University nursing student. We have seen her family grieve. We took parts of that on Friday when the officer who found her and tried to resuscitate her to no end.
Not a care in the world.
We saw 26.
Look at this piece of garbage. Not a care in the world. Could care less. This piece of garbage wasn't even in the country for 3 months and decide. First of all, I see a lot of people's comments. Don't ever call this piece of garbage an animal. I love animals. Animals are beautiful. Don't ever call this piece of garbage an animal. This dumpster, this garbage dumpster, wasn't even in the country for 3 months. And he just decides, I see a young girl jogging, and I'm going to kidnap her, sexually assault her, and dump her in a drain. More Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Mayorkas success stories. And they'll just laugh. They just laugh it off like it never happened. Oh, according to Kamala, the border's secure. F Kamala Harris.
7 family members. We knew they were in the courtroom. The mom could not stay. The dad stayed. The stepdad stayed. They were weeping as they learned more details about what happened
Sure.
to young Laken Riley by a monster who sat and listened into what was being said the entire time at this short trial through a translation device that you see him wearing there on the left of your
Another
screen.
winner.
Phil Holloway, former assistant district attorney, former police officer, and legal advisor to Georgia's Sheriff's Department. Phil, this case went by quickly.
Yeah, Harris, it sure did. And, that's not really surprising considering they waived the jury. That certainly streamlines the prosecutor's evidentiary presentation and all aspects of the case. The judge made a decision here. He took 15 minutes, and he came back. And look, the evidence was overwhelming of guilt. So it's not surprising.
Don't worry. The American taxpayer gets to foot the bill for this piece of garbage to live for the rest of his life. Should be sentenced to death. And Donald Trump should start making laws where when a lowlife does something like this, we make public skepticals of them. You hurt children, you do things like this to women, we get to make a public event of it. So lowlifes like him know not to commit these types of acts. Oh.
Surprising to me that the judge made his decision so very quickly. What is surprising to me is that we have a case like this in my home state where, if anybody richly deserved the death penalty, it would be Jose Ibarra. But the current elected district attorney, now she's out of office at the end of the year. Deborah Gonzalez, however, is a so-called Soros DA, and she made the decision some time ago that her office was not going to seek the death penalty. Now, her office has
a George Soros district attorney, another bleeding heart liberal that thinks this piece of garbage is the victim, and somehow he could be rehabilitated. If anybody thinks that this piece of garbage should be rehabilitated, I hope you have a family tragedy. I really do. F you. F you.
Very little to no success at all prosecuting successfully any kind of felony trial. So they brought in an outside prosecutor from the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, a woman, Sheila Ross, who's very well capable of trying a murder case, any case, certainly one like this one. Could
you imagine being her parents? Could you imagine being her parents right now? Like, how do you live anymore? Her parents, listen, as bad as what happened to Laken Riley, I think it's even worse for the parents. Because this is just in your mind all day long, day after day after day after day. And this piece of garbage gets to sit in a jail cell, have TV, snacks. They'll treat him like a little kid, give him coloring books. Oh, poor Jose. He come from a challenged background. So he came to America and he brought his greatness here. And he wasn't here for 90 days before he decided to sexually assault, murder somebody, and then throw her in a drain. Piece of garbage.
A very good job. And now the judge is left with really one task left to do, which is to sentence Ibarra to life without parole.
Oh, wow.
All right. So life without parole. You've given us Deborah Gonzalez's role in all of this. And that sentencing will come, it sounds like from what you're saying, before she leaves elected DA office. You mentioned that she's a Soros disciple. If she follows.
First order for Trump, George Soros and his nephew need to be labeled and documented and given the name terrorist and banned from America. That's what Trump's first day in office, he should label George Soros and his nephew as terrorists and ban them from this country, just like a lot of other countries have. He needs to be out of here. He needs to be gone. Him and any family member need to go. That should be Trump's first order of business when he gets into office. George Soros and his family is banned from America.
Follows him, paid for, so on and so forth. We've done a lot of research on George Soros's big hand in our legal system across the country through, avenues of donations and so on and so forth, things that are set up.
The FBI, led by Christopher Wray, Merrick Garland, and DOJ, anybody that waves a Trump flag, an American flag, is a proud Catholic, gets labeled a domestic terrorist. Well, guess what? It's time to label George Soros a domestic terrorist and anybody in his family. It's time for them to get the hell out of America.
For him to do that. My other question, though, is a legal one, or my other point is a legal one. There were several counts of felony murder.
Yeah.
With one death. So can you break that down a little bit? Guilty on all of those felony murder charges, but how different was each one?
Well,
hey, Trump, if you're watching, I need a part-time job. Fly me out to Georgia or whatever. I can handle this. Taxpayers don't got to pay for 40 years. It'll be fantastic.
when the felony murder is essentially a death that occurs during the commission of some underlying felony, and by law, Harris, those will all essentially, they will merge, if you will, into the broader malice murder conviction. So he's only going to be sentenced once for murder. Those other counts will merge, with the exception of some of them. I think maybe the kidnapping and others don't. But in any event, the murders will merge, and he's going to get life without parole. That sentencing will
too good for him.
Life without parole. Come back at
life without parole. He should put in front of a fired squad. Give him the electric chair. The
judge said here in the Eastern Time Zone.
That fast.
So he's going to be off today. He's ready to pronounce sentence. He essentially said that before they took a break. I think that the reason for the break is because his family members and others have a right to be heard. They get to do what's called a victim's right of allocution. They get to address the defendant. They get to address the court. And I think the prosecutor has to take some time with them to decide who might want to speak and who's able to do it. A lot of people just can't really handle it, and they don't want to speak, but others do want to speak. And I imagine we're going to hear some people speak on behalf of Laken Riley. The judge's sentence is a foregone conclusion, but under Georgia law, under the Crime Victims Bill of Rights, they have that right, and the judge will afford them that opportunity to address the convicted killer.
So, Phil, I want to know the greater implications of this, because we have a lot of conversation going on right now as we've seen an uptick in illegal aliens being involved in violent crimes. And so, and we know there's been a huge...
according to Democrats, 99.9% of illegal aliens don't commit crime. But in every major city and everywhere they go, they're committing violent crime. Not all of them, but a good portion and majority are. It's all, according to the Democrats, it's all in our mind. You know what? Keep going with that playbook. I want Trump to let Sonny Houston and The View don't ever take them off the air. Let them keep going, because there will be a Republican president for the next 200 years. The narrative that they keep spinning, that we're all slow and dumb and can't figure out what's going on.
To the tune of more than 10 million of people flowing across our border, and a high percentage are here crawling across, not going to checkpoints, breaking our first law of sovereignty. But does this verdict, guilty on all charges, have implications for any of those dim-led cities, which now have put out new welcome signs to people coming across the border and wanting to officially call themselves sanctuary states and cities? Does this send a message to people who flow there and have already committed crimes entering the country previously in their countries? We don't vet them. We don't know anything about them. What does this say to those Democratic leaders who want to do that now against Trump?
They had better heed this, because if you watch the evidence in this case, you know that this is an individual who was at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City, and he and his acquaintance, his colleague, whatever, they obtained a humanitarian flight that brought them from that area in New York to the migrant, shelter, all the way on a humanitarian flight paid for, I'm sure, by taxpayers, and it landed in the Atlanta, Georgia area, where he went over there, and he, according to the evidence in this case, Harris, he essentially went out hunting, for someone to sexually assault and eventually to kill. And to me, it doesn't sound like it's his first time ever doing this because
Wonderful dumpster fire. More Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Democratic success stories. Don't worry, coming to a neighborhood near you. So law enforcement doesn't believe that this is his first time hunting females to sexually assault and murder. Let that sink in.
the way it was sort of planned and deliberate. So these sanctuary cities who think that they're going to be able to get away with harboring individuals like this, I'm sure the incoming administration is not going to permit it. They can bluster and they
Trump send the military into the cities. Don't want to cooperate. It's not up to them. If you're illegal in America, we have the highest incarceration rate in the world. We have no problem separating Americans from their families. No problem whatsoever. Put you in jail in a heartbeat for committing a crime. If you came into this country illegally, it's a crime. You need to be deported immediately. Make it like Australia. If you can't prove that you're going to come here and not be a burden on the taxpayer, in Australia, you have to prove that you have a job, a place to live. You can't get on welfare. You get no freebies or you can't go there. It should be done here in America the way it's done in Australia. The police here should have the right that they ask you for your license. If you don't have the proper documentation, you should be arrested on the spot, brought to a processing center, and deported. It's a simple, Democrats, how are we going to do that? It's so complicated. We can't do that. Yes, you can. What are you talking about? Yeah, we have millions of Americans in prison. You have no problem incarcerating Americans, but you can't deport a person that broke the law because it's too much work. No, it's simple. You give local law enforcement the authority. You pull a guy over in the car for speeding. He doesn't have the right documentation. He's illegal. He gets arrested. Processing center within 24 hours on a plane to wherever the person came from. It's that simple. Enough is enough already.
can threaten things, but at the end of the day, they must cooperate with, or at least not stand in the way of federal immigration authorities.
Lock them up,
who want
too.
to do their job, and I think start cleaning out some of these folks that came here with.
If these Democratic mayors and senators and governors and whoever want to break the law and thumb their nose at the law in America where illegal immigration is against the law, lock them up too. Lock them all up.
With ill intent on their mind when they came here allegedly seeking sanctuary.
I can only imagine what the family is going through right now. That mom, dad, stepdad, and all the rest of the 27 loved ones. Her close friends, her roommates, some of whom testified in this case before that judge who reached every single count of guilt against the man on the bottom of the screen.
He could care less.
I pray for them. I pray for those surviving family members.
I say this all the time. What Democrats have done to Donald Trump, going after him, the DOJ, the FBI, saying his assets aren't worth what they are, trying to have him killed 3 times, the border invasion, Lincoln Riley's murder. I would never vote for another Democrat as long as I live. You could literally, a Democrat could hand me $200,000 a year in cash, a new car, a new home. I still would never vote for you. I want to congratulate Democrats for doing all that they do in this country to make it super red and to make people say to themselves, I can't stand the Democratic Party so much that no matter who runs, I won't vote for them. Thank you, Democrats. Keep up the great work.